Hello everyone, and welcome to the Jose Aliaga Show. Today this episode is for people that love history. I love history. And today I'm gonna talk about Abraham Lincoln and the Civil War. Abraham Lincoln born in February 12, 1809, and he dies on April 15, 1865, after Civil War. He was an American statesman, politician, and a lawyer who served as a 16th President of the United States from 1861 until his assassination on April 1865. Lincoln led the nation through the American Civil War. It was the bloody war and is the greatest moral, constitutional, and political crisis. He preserved the Union and he abolished slavery. He born in Kentucky, where Lincoln grew up with a poor family. And we have a picture of his house. That's a replica how the Lincoln house looks like. And he was self-educated. He became a lawyer and a Whig Party leader. That's one of the oldest party before the Republican and Democrat Party. In Illinois, he was a state legislator and a congressman. As a freshman congressman, he served just one time, but he had the honor to meet John Quincy Adams, who was a former president. After his presidency, he became a congressman. There was a unique thing because at that time, John Quincy Adams, he decided actually to be a congressman after his presidency. John Quincy Adams' presidential election on 1824 against Andrew Jackson was one of the most toughest, cruel maybe campaign in history. I don't know if Trump-Hillary election in 2016 was worse or not, but it was one of the toughest elections. But Lincoln learned a lot from John Quincy Adams because John Quincy Adams was on the Declaration of Independence. When he was a little kid or a little boy, he was next to his dad, John Adams, who was a president as well. Quincy Adams was a good influence for Lincoln because he transmitted what the founder father felt during the Declaration of Independence, because he was the only one alive at that time. He was witnesses for the Declaration of Independence. After he retired from Congress, I talk about Lincoln, he practiced law in Illinois, but he was really angered because of Democrats supporting slavery. He re-entered in politics in 1854, and he became a leader in the new party, the Republican Party. The Republican Party emerged in 1854 to fight the Kansas-Nebraska Act, or the expansion of slavery into the American new territories. The Kansas-Nebraska Act was passed by the U.S. Congress on May 30, 1854. It allowed people into the new territories of Kansas and Nebraska to decide for themselves whether or not to allow slavery within their borders. The act served to repeal the Missouri Compromise of 1820, which prohibited slavery on the north latitude of the 3630. Lincoln gained national attention in 1858 for debating the National Democratic leader, Stephen Douglas, who was a very famous senator. Stephen Douglas was very well known at that time. At that time also they said that Stephen Douglas will be the next president of the United States. In 1858, the state campaign, Lincoln lost, but he ran for president 2 years later on 1860 against the same opponent, Stephen Douglas. Lincoln won the North, obviously, and the South was pro-slavery and took his win as a proof that the North was rejecting the constitutional rights of the Southern state to practice slavery. They began the process of sending the Union, or seceding from the Union. To secure its independence, the new Confederate States of America fired on Fort Sumter, one of the few United States forts. In that South, Lincoln called up volunteers and the militia to support the rebellion and restore the Union. So from 1861 to 1865, it was divided into two countries, the United States of America and the Confederate States of America, led by President Jefferson Davis. He born on June 3rd, 1808, and he died on December 6, 1889. He was an American politician who served as the only president of the Confederate States of America from 1861 to 1865. As a member of the Democratic Party, he represented Mississippi and the United States Senate and the House of Representatives, prior to switching the alliance to the Confederacy. He was appointed as the United States Secretary of War, serving from 1853 to 1857 under President Franklin Pierce. But Jefferson Davis was married, and many people don't know that he was married to Sarah Tyler, the daughter of General and President Zachary Tyler, in 1835. Jefferson Davis was only 27 years old. So he previously, before was president, he had tons of experience be in the House and the Senate, and also be married to the daughter of one of the presidents. On April 12, 1861, when the Confederates fired up on Fort Sumter, there's a picture right there of Fort Sumter. Later on September 8, 1862, Lincoln issued an Emancipation Proclamation, which made the ending of slavery as a war goal. To the west, by the summer of 1862, the Union destroyed the Confederate River Navy, then much of the Western armies, and seized the New Orleans. In 1863, Robert E. Lee, general for the Confederates, he incursioned to the north at the Battle of Gettysburg, that many people probably remember, and the Western success led to Ulysses S. Grant, or U.S. Grant, command the Union Army in 1864. So after this fighting and the blockade from the naval or the Navy, there was a good blockade called the Anaconda Plan. The Confederate Corps or the Union marshaled the resources and the manpower to attack the Confederacy from all directions, leading to the fall of Atlanta to William Sherman and his march to the sea. The last significant battle ranged around the Seal of Petersburg. Lee escaped to attempt to end with his surrender at the Appomattox Courthouse on April 9, 1865. While the military war was coming to the end, the political reintegration of the nation was to take another 12 years, known as the Reconstruction era. Abraham Lincoln, later around a few days after the surrender of the South, he was assassinated by John Jacob Brooks on Good Friday, April 14, 1865, while attending to the play at the Ford Theater. 5 days later, it was 5 days after Robert B. Lee surrendered. John Jacob Brooks, as well-known actor and a Confederate spy, he was a Confederate spy from Maryland. I mean, he never joined the Confederate Army, but he had a lot of contacts with the Confederate. He planned, and after attending on April 11, 1865, to the speech on which Lincoln promoted voting rights for blacks, John Jacob Brooks decided to assassinate President Lincoln. And then, and after he learning of Lincoln intent to attend to the play with Grant, which supposed to be Ulysses Grant and Lincoln, they both were planning to go to the play, but Grant decided to don't go, and then John Jacob and the conspirators planned to assassinate Lincoln and Grant at the theater. Also they planned to kill Vice President Johnson and the Secretary of State Seward from the respective homes. Lincoln left to attend the play, or American Cousin, on April 14. At the last minute, Grant decided to go to New Jersey to visit his children instead to attending to the play. John Jacob crept up from behind, and about 10:13 p.m. he fired at the back of Lincoln's head, and Lincoln was mortally wounded. And Lincoln brought a guest, Major Henry Rayburn, and he actually grabbed a boot and started fighting, and John Walker Booth stabbing him and jumped and escaped from the theater. Lincoln was taken across the street to the Patterson house. After remaining in coma for 9 hours, Lincoln died at 7:22 a.m. on April 15. After his death, it was sad for our nation, and Secretary Stanton says, he quote, "Now he belongs to the age." And then Vice President Johnson became president. He was sworn at 10 a.m. in the morning, less than 3 hours after Lincoln's death. Something very interesting about the Civil War was that in the South, this is very interesting, and I want to just share with you. I find out when I was reading all this, I find out that the South, one of the richest men in the South that support the Confederates is William Ellison Jr. He born as April Ellison on April 1790, that's why his name was April, and he died on December 5, 1861. He was somebody that worked in cotton. He was a cotton maker and a blacksmith in the South, in South Carolina. And he was a former slave who achieved considerable success on business before the American Civil War. He eventually became a major planter and one of the medium property owners, and he was one of the wealthiest black property owners in the state. According to the 1860 census, in which his surname was listed as Ellerson, he owned 53 black slaves, making him the largest of 171 black slaveholders in South Carolina. He held 40 slaves at his death and more than 1,000 acres from 1830 and 1865. He and his sons were the only free blacks in that Sumter County on South Carolina. To own a slave, the county was the larger devoted to cotton plantations, and the majority population was a slave. Ellison and his sons were among a number of successful free people of colors in the antebellum years. During the American Civil War, Ellison and his sons support the Confederate States of America and give the government substantial donations and aid. A grandson fought informally with the regular Confederate Army and survived the war. So even though he was black, he supported the Confederates. And that was kind of interesting because you probably think that the Confederates won't get any support from blacks, but actually they did. Actually, they got finance, they got aids, and the grandson of April Ellison actually supported the Confederates. Kind of interesting when I was reading history. Probably most people don't know about it. If you liked this episode, please give me a like or put a nice comment and share it. And also, you can visit my website, is www.josealiaga.com, or my Facebook page, The Jose Aliaga Show. And that's all for today, and thank you so much. Bye-bye.